For those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Jessica Gervin, and I had the privilege of knowing Cam for the last 20 years of my life and loving him and being loved by him for the last 9. I'm not really sure how I'm going to get through this today, but that's why these 3 are up here in case I can't. But I always told Cam that if the day came, I would make it happen, that I would stand up here and give him the love and the respect that he deserved and not let evil win. He was not only the best cop that I know, and I promise I'm not just biased, but he also managed to be a supportive friend, a loving son and brother, an amazing husband, and was already the best dad to our pups and baby girl. But that wasn't even all that he was. I'm finding out that he was even more. And somebody who manages to hold that many titles and hold all of them so well with so much grace deserves to be bragged about. Cam and I always said that God knew what we needed when he gave us to each other. We're polar opposites with the same heart. A lot of people will talk to you about how he was the life of the party because it was the truth. He could light up any room that he was in. He had the best laugh, and he could make you smile when you honestly didn't think you could anymore. He was, and he always will be, my sunshine. But he's also a lot more. He was patient in ways that I'm envious of, and he would give everybody a second chance. He held on to faith when I wanted to give up and was unbelievably resilient. He was passionate and all in on whatever he cared about, and he was the best person to have in your corner cheering you on. He honestly woke up every day and would tell me that he saw it as an opportunity rather than a responsibility, and I wish that I could gain that perspective. But mostly he loved so big. He loved life, he loved Jesus, he loved his job, but most of all, he loved the people in his world. I got to experience more love and life in our 9 years together than I think a lot of people do in a lifetime. And while today, I'm quite frankly very angry and really heartbroken, like many of you, I'm also immensely blessed to have been his best friend and wife, even if it wasn't for nearly long enough. Because being part of Cameron Gervin's world is absolutely magical in every single way. I can't pretend to know what Cam is thinking right now, but I can imagine that he would want to ask that you don't only remember him for the senseless way that their lives ended, but rather that you would remember the legacy he left with how genuine and intentional he was every single day. So, in honor of Cam, I ask, find something that you're passionate about, send the stupid meme to cheer someone up, find excitement in the little things, even if it means you get made fun of, say the prayer before bed even when you don't feel like it, spend too much money on touch tunes at the bars, but most of all, make the choices that are really terrifying but bring joy and adventure to your life, and hold the people that you love so, so close. Live the life that he should have gotten the chance to live, so that he never actually has to die and that he's here forever.
My name is Connor. I'm Cameron's younger brother, and today I'm going to read from Ephesians 3:14 through 21, and this is a passage that I am very well acquainted with because it's a passage that I've prayed over Cameron and Jess and now baby Paisley for almost every day for almost eight years now. And today I again pray for Jess and baby Paisley, but for the entirety of our family and for each and every one of us that's here today. And I pray that in our grief, in our suffering, that this passage wouldn't just be a comfort, but they would become a reality for each and every one of us. I pray that we would bring our anger and our confusion and our sorrow before our Father in heaven, And I believe that as we do that, this passage, these words that I'll read won't just be an idea. It won't just be an ideal or a concept or something that we heard. It'll be reality. It'll be real to us that God is faithful and he will meet us in our pain and in our suffering. It's Ephesians 3:14-21. For this reason I bow my knees to the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, for whom the whole family in heaven and earth is named, that he would grant you, according to the riches of his glory, to be strengthened with might through his Spirit in our inner man, that Christ may dwell in our hearts through faith, that you, being rooted and grounded in love, may be able to comprehend with all of the saints what is the width and the length and the depth and the height, to know the love of Christ which passes knowledge. You may be filled with all the fullness of God. Now to him who is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all we ask or think, according to the power of his work in us, to him be the glory in the church by Jesus Christ to all generations, forever and ever. Amen.
Well, ain't this something? And I feel like Chris would be upset if I didn't ask if anybody didn't have a glass of bourbon, because one is definitely needed right now. First off, I'd like to say thank you to all the law enforcement, paramedics, firefighters, nurses, and doctors that did everything humanly possible that night to try to keep Chris and Cam in all of our lives after that evil, senseless act. To all the local, state, and federal enforcement agencies, thank you for helping ensure Chris and Cam are remembered with dignity and respect. To Mariah and Jess, your husbands were loved and are still loved by many people. We know that no words will ever fill that void in your hearts, but take peace in knowing that they have never left your side and will always be with you. Being in the military, your chosen family often becomes closer to you than your own blood family. Chris was a chosen brother that I could go to anything for anything I ever needed. When I first met Chris, I was dating my now wife a long time ago. She was moving into a new place and needed a roommate. She told me she knew a guy she trusted that she could live with. So when she told me he was from South Jersey, I became worried and wondered what exit he was from. But then I met Chris and I knew I had nothing to worry about. Because as we all know, Chris was, and always will be very, very special in many ways. You would never know by just talking to Chris that he majored in accounting, especially when he needed to use 10 fingers and 10 toes just to count to 6. So I was amazed that when we went golfing, he knew how to count all of his strokes, including his mulligans. Early on in our friendship, he was out for drinks with my wife while I was up in Richmond. She dared Chris to call and tell me she was being a choice word. I won't say it here in church. For not drinking, not the wisest of dares. Well, he took that dare, and it was not the smartest of choices, and it didn't sit well with me. I had a few choice words with him through the phone. He quickly became scared and insisted it was just a joke, apologized, and quickly handed the phone back to her. This was the only time I was ever angry with him, and he was afraid of me. When I got back in town, he apologized again. I knew from that moment, again, he was special in multiple ways. And from that time on, we became close friends. When we'd go watch him play softball, we knew he loved sports and even dressed like he was good at them. He was a goofball on and off the fields with his stupid little smirk he would make when hanging out in the bleachers in between innings, and joining in the peanut gallery to make fun of the other team. When Chris graduated the sheriff's department and became a deputy, I was not only proud of him for finishing, but I was also fond for what he stood for now. The look on his face afterwards was one of pure joy and embarrassment from the catcalling I was giving him as he walked across the stage. But also knowing Chris, it was hard to believe he was one of the top academics for his class and also the top driver. Chris did not have a way with words when you were talking to him, but he sure knew how to articulate them on paper. When you talked to him, you knew he received a Jersey education. As for top driver, wow. For someone that knew how to drive, he sure went through personal and work vehicles. I'm sure people in the second definitely know how many cars he went through. As a horrible driver he might be, I trusted him to drive my truck more than I trusted my own wife to. When I was stationed overseas, I should have left him in charge of keeping my truck alive since my wife let it die multiple times. But thankfully, the day before I came back, he dropped everything to come and get it running just for me. Chris really became family when I was stationed overseas just months after my daughter was born. If there was anything I ever needed, I knew I could call on him. If my wife needed any help with Lillian, he would be there in a heartbeat or ensure Mariah was there to help. He was the first man I ever trusted alone with my daughter. And if you have daughters, you know how big of a deal that is these days. However, I do not believe he ever changed a single diaper. This is where he made a stand, but it gladly helped in tossing it in the trash for you. It was amazing to watch Lillian grow up around Chris. Once she was able to talk, he was always Uncle Chris. It was always very cute. Every time that he saw Lillian, he would do a little two-step waddle. And she would run up to him giggling, and he would pick her up and give her the biggest hug in the world. Lillian was proud of her uncle for being a police officer. Every time we passed a cop car, she would ask if that was Uncle Chris. Unfortunately, she never got to see Chris in a cop car. But this week, she was able to hop in one and turn on the lights. I knew he was looking down on her in that moment and happy to see her. I wish Chris could be there to watch Lillian and Sophia grow up and help me fight off all the boyfriends they will have. There was even a couple nights around the fires we talked about how we would scare those would-be teenage boys. Our Sundays will never be the same. We'd get together with Chris and Mariah for family dinners, sit around the table talking about our lives this past week. Chris would always bring a new bottle of bourbon to try, and we would decide if we liked it or not. It was always great to hear the stories of the calls he went to. My wife, being a deputy, would always get annoyed with Chris for the people he brought to jail. They really were the dynamic duo. Chris was the one that caught him, and Heather was the one that watched them. For Christmas, Chris and Mariah only wanted one thing: to have a family dinner with us and the girls and enjoy time with family. And he got that Christmas gift. Unfortunately, it lasted for a couple days after we finished off 5 bottles of bourbon that night. Unfortunately for us, because of sickness in both our houses, this was the last time I got to see Chris. Now I'd like to share some words on behalf of my wife and his sister, Heather. When Chris started out as just a coworker with my wife, we had no idea this goofy, skinny kid from South Jersey would have such an impact on our lives. He was the best roommate she ever had. They also endured the Sheriff's Office Academy together. She would also like to apologize to the training staff at Lita. Her and Chris both lied on their food diary journals. When he joined the police department, he consistently tried to convince her to jump ship and go with him. When we welcomed our first daughter, Chris told Heather, "Whenever you need me, I'm there. She's family." He was there for the holidays, life events, family dinners on Sundays, birthdays, every good and bad time. He was always there. They became true brother and sister, tied together by the thin blue line. His father was incredibly proud of his son and will miss him dearly, and deeply loved him beyond words. His mother shared memories about how Chris would sell care packages she sent him in college. When he played baseball, he always hit a home run directly in her direction. He was always up for anything and never missed an opportunity to laugh. The self-proclaimed mama's boy never missed an opportunity to remind his mother how much he loved her. When he started dating Mariah, we couldn't be more excited to watch our two closest friends fall in love. And when he puked in her hair and she still stayed with him, we knew it was really meant to be. These two are twin flames, best friends, soulmates, and love each other with all their hearts. They say till death do us part, but sincerely hope they find each other in every lifetime after this. On February 21st, Chris and Cam went to work together and eager and excited to be riding double together. They were true warriors until the very end. I hope everyone here walks away tall with their heads held high and proud of our heroes and continue to fight in their honor. They always conducted themselves with exceptional professionalism and embodies the proud Virginia Beach Police Department. Thank you for everything. We will always love you. We will always keep you in your memory alive, and we'll see you again in Valhalla. Now I'd like to share on behalf of his brother, Dan. Chris was my brother and best friend. We met when he joined the sheriff's office and was assigned to my shift. Quickly became one of my closest friends at the department. At the time, Mariah was living with my wife, Kate, and I. Whoever said becoming roommates with your friends was a bad idea never met Mariah. She was our best friend, our best roommate we could ever ask for. Shortly after Chris graduated the academy, we introduced him to Mariah. After a couple months of excuses, finally convinced Chris to come over for a boys' night for bourbon and cigars. It was that night he finally talked to Mariah and started their relationship, and from there on, they were inseparable. It wasn't long after Chris moved in, and the four of us did everything together. Family dinners, game nights, bourbon tastings became a staple in our house. It seems impossible to identify a favorite memory of Chris, because every memory from that time on included him. Chris was the person I spent my nights off with playing video games, the person I commiserated with about frustrations of work, the person who would happily have a glass of bourbon with me at 6 a.m. after a difficult shift. I will always cherish the time I had living with Chris and Mariah, and I would give anything to have that time back. Losing Chris feels like I lost a part of myself, and I'll never be able to replace it. Chris, I love you, and you know you're looking down and calling me a pansy for all the mushy crap that was just said. Mariah, you will always be my sister, and Kate and I will always be there for you. Some words on his behalf of his best friend and his other brother, Mike. Chris was a good man, an asshole, but a good man. Sorry, Father. Forgive me. Thank you. I had the privilege of getting to meet Chris 11 years ago by stumbling upon this guy sitting outside a dorm room by myself smoking a cigar. I never knew that 11 years later I would look back and recognize that day I met him was one of my closest friends. Chris and I had a lot of fun while in college, from using longboards and mops to jousts, to driving a crappy Saturn to the gym at 11 p.m. I have a completely different taste in music after spending 11 years with Chris, listening to everything from Jaron Benton to 21 Pilots as we drove all over Virginia Beach. My favorite memory of Chris must be the purchase and eventually selling of a 1998 Ford Ranger. After witnessing buy, fix up, and sell a Ford Ranger for profit, Chris thought it must be super easy and fun. One day I got a message from Chris asking for me to go with him to the police auction where a red Ford Ranger was being sold. After raising his hand when no one else would, Chris left that day $800 lighter with a truck he soon realized had a cracked engine block. While he never did make all of his money back, Chris made the most of the situation by turning that truck bed into a recycling bin for Miller Lite cans. While this story may be a funny laugh for most of you, it means something entirely different to me. It was the opportunity for me to share something with Chris. Having little to no interest in softball, police work, or the Philadelphia Eagles, this was the one area where we can always be on the same page. Find the cheapest car with the most potential and proceed to get pissed and throw every wrench and socket in our toolbox as we drank and called it a piece of crap. Sorry, Father. I have too many stories to share, and while I want all of you to hear those stories, here's the general gist of them. If Chris did something stupid, I was most likely there. If I did something stupid, it was probably Chris's idea. And if Chris and I did something smart, it was probably because we finally listened to my wife, Leslie. Chris was my brother, and I believe he felt the same about me by his actions and conversations we had over this past decade. My prayer today is that I hope I was able to be at least half as good as a brother to him as he was to me, and that he knows he will never be forgotten by Leslie or me. We love you, buddy. I hope when you look down on us, you smile the life you help us build. Now finally, to Mariah. Thank you. Thank you for making Chris the man he was. Thank you for loving and caring for him. Thank you for being there when he needed it. Thank you for being the family and being the aunt to our daughters. To Chris, thank you for making me laugh, making me cry, making me a better man. Thank you for taking care of my family when I had to be gone. Thank you for changing all of our lives forever in the best of ways. To everyone here, drink the good bourbon. Take the vacation. Spend times with those that you love. Take photos to help remember the memories. Tell those that you are close to that you love them. May God rest your soul, Christopher Michael Lewis Reese. And I can't wait for the day we sit back and enjoy a glass of bourbon together. Love you, brother.
Sight. First, to the families. Mariah, Jess, you have lovely families. I'm sorry we had to meet them this way. The nicest people I've ever seen. Thank you for the honor of trusting me to speak today. I am truly humbled and at your service today and always. When I sat to write this, I thought it felt like I was in a bad dream or a story. How could I be writing for a celebration of life for Cam and Chris? How could they be gone? How could this happen? And how will we ever get through this? As I continued to think about those and a million other questions, it dawned on me that this is a story. This is the story of Officer Cameron Gervin and Officer Christopher Reese, two heroes and the bravest, most selfless men I have ever known, and the story is not finished. I first met Cam in the summer of 2020 when I was lucky enough to serve as one of his training officers. He was a baby-faced, clean-shaven, 21-year-old rookie fresh out of the academy and assigned to the 3rd Precinct. There was never a more difficult time to be a cop, and it speaks volumes to his immense bravery and dedication to serve that he chose to answer his calling during that time. We were assigned to community-oriented policing in the 3rd Precinct, and Cam loved the fast pace of the work we were doing. He was known for his positive energy, excitement to learn, and eagerness to experience new things, which set him apart to all of his PTOs early on. Cam shared with me his background and his obvious passion to help others. He would talk about how police work was his calling and the thing he knew he wanted to do from childhood. After excelling through his training and fueled by that passion, he became a shining star in the 3rd Herd. His work ethic and reputation for productivity earned him a spot on the crime suppression squad there. Last year, as a brand new sergeant, my first assignment was midnights in the 4th Precinct. I had heard much about this squad and was excited to get to know the team. It was there I first met Chris. It was immediately evident just how loved he was by his peers. He acted as an informal leader among the squad who I knew I could trust with anything. His calming presence and good nature stood out from the very first night I met him, and I always knew that if Chris was working, everything would be okay, no matter what was thrown at us on the shift. One of my first shifts with the squad, we had an incident in which I heard some commotion on the radio. It was regarding a DUI. I headed to the scene to check on things, feeling anxious about what I would find there. What I found was a car parked on a sidewalk up against a building, 2 officers speaking to the driver, and then there was Chris, standing calmly and watching over the scene and his colleagues. When I asked how things were going, he said simply, "I got this." That is how I knew Chris. Calm, mature, and capable. Whenever things got hectic and the stress was high, Chris had an innate ability to make us feel like everything would be fine. This is Cam's and Chris's story. It is an action story, and they are the heroes. They both had a love for speed. Mariah shared with me that Chris found pleasure in, quote, seeing just how fast vehicles could go. He didn't tell me that part. Just the other day, Cam came to my desk and proudly showed me that one of his pursuits was featured on a local police social media site. They had a passion for police work, and they made our community safer. Cam loved getting guns off the street, and he was good at it. He was experienced, and he was wise beyond his years. Training officers worry about their rookies after their time together, but I never had to worry about Cam. It was a given that he would be great. I had an overwhelming sense of pride watching him work, and I know all of his PTOs felt the same way. He embodied what it means to be a cop: passionate, dedicated, and brave. Chris was reliable and confident. I knew he would take care of everything and do it well, regardless of what the call was. He was prepared well by his time with the sheriff's office, and he gave me a tremendous sense of relief whenever I knew he was there. If I showed up to a scene he was working, he'd flash me his grin, and I knew he had everything under control. When you think of law enforcement, words like integrity, respect, courage, and honor come to mind. But for Cam and Chris, these were more than just words. It was a way of life, and who they truly are. It is how they were raised, it is how they will be remembered, and it is the legacy they leave in each of us. Their dedication to the badge was more than car chases and catching the bad guy, though. Cam's bright smile and infectious personality made every shift a little brighter for everyone he worked with. His sense of humor is legendary, and he could lighten even the hardest situations for us. When I was transferred to day shift, Cam regularly referred to me as a traitor. Chris was one of the most trustworthy men I've known. He was so capable, and I feel truly lucky to have worked with him. His immense kindness and integrity will inspire me forever. In a world where fewer and fewer people can effectively communicate, these two guys certainly had the true gift of gab. They treated people with respect and dignity, even in their worst moments. Cam had a natural way of making everyone feel like you were his friend. He took extra time to earn respect from people, and his ability to negotiate could de-escalate tense situations. In fact, he was so respectful of others that people would often thank him after he arrested them because of how he treated them. Chris cared deeply about people. He would go the extra mile to make you feel comfortable. He knew when to be serious on the job, but when it was time to unwind with his blue family, he was a cornerstone for us. When it came to midnight shift in the 4th, it struck me that Cam and Chris fit in their squad like puzzle pieces. They served as integral members of this family. There is no doubt that they made us better, stronger, and now there are 2 pieces missing from the middle of the puzzle. But this is also a love story. On my first shift with Cam, I made a note in his journal about how he told me he had a great support system at home, most notably in Jess. Anyone who knew Cam knew that he loved Jess. I will never forget the joy and the pride in his voice when he shared with me the news that they were starting their family. This was the first time I saw something excite him as much as police work. Life isn't fair. For the past week, I've had the honor of getting to know Mariah. And one thing has been abundantly clear. She and Chris shared their own beautiful love story. They were just beginning their life together, planning for their future. Life isn't fair. Mariah, Jess, without your love and support, Chris and Cam couldn't have been the great cops, the great men that they were. You gave them the strength they needed to come in every single night and make this world a better place. Thank you for sharing them with us and for allowing us the privilege of knowing them. Cam's and Chris's story is also a tragedy. On February 22nd, while answering their call for service, they made the ultimate sacrifice. Their loss is profound, a painful void in our hearts, in our ranks, and in the community they so selflessly protected. In their service, they taught us that true courage isn't the absence of fear, but the strength to face it, even when the cost is immeasurable. Their story is not over. Their legacy is not merely in the badge we wear, but in the spirit of service they instilled in all of us. Cam and Chris will continue to inspire every act of bravery, every gesture of kindness, and every moment of selfless service. In the quiet moments on our shifts and in the challenges we face, we carry their legacy with us. When we patrol this city, when we experience a pursuit, and we catch the bad guy, we carry their legacy. When we laugh again someday, telling stories of our time with them, or hear their favorite country songs, or whenever they are on our minds, we carry their legacy. So tomorrow, we will pin on our badges, we will lace up our boots, we will don our vests, we will get in those cars once again, and take up the mission to serve and protect our community through our grief and through our anger, because it is what Cam and Chris would expect us to do. It's what they would want us, it's what they would do for us, and they deserve nothing less from us. Gervin, Reese, rest easy, brothers. We've got it from here.
Dispatch to 443 Charles, officer codes 4276 and 4605. Dispatch to 443 Charles, officer codes 4276 and 4605. Dispatch to 443 Charles, officer codes 4276 and 4605. This is the final call for 443 Charles, officers Cameron Gervin and Christopher Reese. End of watch February 22nd, 2025, after losing their lives in the ultimate sacrifice. Thank you for your commitment and dedication. Your compassion, integrity, and laughter have touched the lives of many. Though you are gone, you will never be forgotten. 443 Charles, you have been relieved. Rest easy. We have the watch from here.